It is in the ballpark of you post something on social media and bang, there's a knock at the door. It comes as a new report by the Policy Exchange. The think tank has found that the incidents take up to 60,000 hours of officers' time every year, which of course inevitably distracts them from what you might call fighting real crime. Let's get a word with Kyriakos Kotsoglou, Associate Professor for Criminal Law from Northumbria Law School. Kyri, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you with us again as well. I mean, this is kind of extraordinary. Look, shine some light on this if you can. I know the police have lots of different hats they have to wear, but you might think in the first analysis of a story like this, something that starts with the words non-crime might be a clue as to why the police should be nowhere near it.
Yes. So I would like to approach that in the following way, because there are multiple ways to approach this bizarre concept. When we talk about policing, we need to think about the very nature of it. So the social contract between citizens and the state.
Yeah.
In its most basic form, it's the following agreement. The citizens agree that the state has the monopoly on the use of force unless there are sort of self-defense circumstances.
Sure.
And the state agrees to the two following things. A, to keep us safe so that they tackle crime, and B, leave us alone so that citizens do whatever they want within the boundaries of the law. So anything that is not forbidden is allowed. The non-crime hate incidents concept starts redesigning this basic concept of the social contract between us and the state, because now the state starts taking an interest in what we do, which does not violate any rules or any norms or does not constitute an offense. And this is what leads to the waste of policing and police resources that we have now begun to awaken to as a reality. And I think the number is 60,000 hours per year. I cannot verify whether it's accurate or not. I don't think this is the point of having a precise number, but it sounds about right.
Yeah. Is there anything in, I mean, the idea behind this is apparently that, which some use as a defence of it. They say, look, it's about collating data so that the police don't go around arresting people for silly things they said on social media, but a kind of a pre-warning that if you carried on doing that or took it to its next level, then it might be an offence. So actually, Keir Starmer, I think, echoed this. He talked about the use of databasing comments, which on one hand I find rather sinister, but trying to give him a benefit of the doubt, which I don't like to do too often, I wonder whether he's signing up to that same theory, that this is about a preemptive strike, if you like.
Yes. Well, data is now the new gold, and everyone is trying to get access to data.
Yeah.
The reality, as per the Court of Appeal's judgment in Miller versus College of Policing, is that NCHIs are, as a concept, legitimate, and they are here to stay, although we might disagree with that. So the problem is in what way we will add safeguards so that it does not interfere with Article 10 rights, for example, the freedom of expression. And even the College of Policing, in its new code of practice, said that they will, by default, we should opt for the anonymized route. But it's not the case. We see that police officers are recording NCHIs in the non-anonymized. So in the version in which they put down the name of the subject on the record, and then they go on to knock at their door, as we saw with Miss Pearson's incident. And
often have video evidence of this as well, so it's often a filmed incident too.
Yes, although sometimes they do not release the transcript of those discussions or the video evidence as such. So as many of my colleagues, and me included, have predicted, the government will keep doubling down on this concept, which is problematic at its core.
Sure.
It's by design problematic. And I agree with you. It's just that we are bound by what is the law at this point, and the Court of Appeal was quite clear on that. that they do not have a problem with NCHIs as such. Now, it might change, but I cannot see that in the foreseeable future, this government will depart from the concept of recording lawful behavior so that they can have access in the future on that.
I mean, some of this stuff, some of the examples, you know, a kid calling another kid, was it a smelly fish or something in the play? I mean, this is ridiculous stuff. Much of it is stuff that's said on social media. There are occasions when people have gone over the top. Have we just got to get used to living in this sort of, no obvious utopian pun intended here, but have we got to get used to this sort of brave new world where we have to be doubly careful that the digital world is not what it once was. The digital world is now the real world.
Well, this is the whole point. And despite the intentions of the government, as we know, the road to hell is full of good intentions.
Sure.
The main effect of recording lawful behavior is the chilling effect, so that we think twice when we want to disagree with the whichever orthodoxy, whichever narrative is on the news or in political discussions. And if I may, I would like to try to explain to your listeners, Ian, why this is actually happening, that police officers are recording ridiculous things, such as a child sort of calling a classmate as a smelly fish or whatever it was.
Yeah.
The College of Policing is putting an unfair burden on police officers. They're trying to reintroduce common sense through the window, although they have sort of said it needs to get out of the main door. And they ask police officers to think, to utilize common sense and apply common sense so that they do not record. And I want you to think from a bottom-up perspective, from the point of view of the police officer, who will think, if I do not record that, then there will be someone who complains publicly about police XY police force not taking hate speech seriously, or the 1 in a million chance of the person who was not recorded as an NCHI subject going on in the future to commit a horrific crime, so that there will be discussions about why did we not catch that. And again, it's 1 in a million chance, but it's enough for them to record even those remote scenarios of hate, where a child basically did what we have all been doing during our childhood. And this actually generates this situation, this Orwellian situation. Now, whether we need to get used to that, I cannot tell. There are ways to fight back. Article 10 says that NCHIs as a concept is problematic, and I think there's still much to see in that regard.
Okay. Kyri, as ever, thank you for your time, Dr. Kyriakos Kotsoglou, who's the Associate Professor of Criminal Law. It is a disturbing area. And I wonder, regardless of, I mean, we can speak forever about the stupidity of a non-crime hate crime. It's not quite the same as just because it's not exclusive about social media, but the bit that interests me is the social media bit, what you can and cannot say in it. And I remember, I don't know, we've said this a load of times in the past, that the initial kind of before social media, there were these things called chat rooms, and there were chat rooms for everything. There were chat rooms for sports fans, there were chat rooms for people who like beauty tips, there were chat rooms for people who were interested in military matters, and there were chat rooms for people who like to, you know, kind of bit of a chinwag. So there were chat rooms for everything. And one of the kind of, or part of the reasoning behind it was that they were places where you could say what you like, and mostly it wasn't about people arguing. I'm sure there were chat rooms for that as well. Is this the right room for an argument? There was some of that going on. But it was the idea that it was kind of interested people who have the same sort of synergy in terms of stuff they like to talk about and debate. And it was without sort of fear or favour. You kind of were able to say what you like. You weren't being monitored. It wasn't the workplace. It wasn't in the pub. It wasn't in the street, etc. And that was one of the attractions, really, about the sort of early incarnation of the internet in debating terms. I think I've roughly got that right, and those that will remember the kind of chat room years will be probably nodding away at that point, I think. But I wonder now whether we can no longer talk about the digital world as being kind of over there. You know, that's something for people to do. The digital world is upon us, and even social media, it might be a cesspit, but it also happens to be a cesspit that, whilst simultaneously it has amazing ongoing examples of dodgy, horrendous, misplaced, just horrible stuff. But it's also the place where people make big announcements, like governments and corporations who embraced it and can't really now unembrace it. So they're all existing in the same place, like we exist in the same place in the non-digital world. So are we now in a sort of an irredeemable position where the digital world is the world? It's not another place, it's the place. And we can't separate that. So you can't use the same excuses. You can't say, yes, I said something offensive on Twitter. It's not like I shouted it in the high street or walked into my local pub and said it. It was on Twitter. And the answer I sense will be, no, it's exactly like you went into your local pub or went into the high street. There's no separation anymore. That's the nearest I can get to this kind of old bonkers nonsense that's going on.